The first hour of today's event will be a showcase of literary traditional poetry, beginning with today's keynote reader, Ingrid Wendt. Before I read Ingrid's bio, I would just like to say that Ingrid and her husband, Ralph Salisbury, have given me a lot of encouragement as I've worked and organized to bring opportunities to our poetry community, and I owe them a real debt of gratitude. I'm proud to have Ingrid as our keynote reader today, and Ralph was our keynote reader last year, as many of you know. So, Ingrid Wendt has recently returned from a 3-month writing residency in Mexico. She is the author of 5 books of poems, 1 chapbook, 2 anthologies, and a book-length teaching guide. Among her many honors are the Oregon Book Award, the Yellow Glynn Award, the Editions Prize, the D.H. Lawrence Fellowship, and 3 Fulbright professorships to Germany. Her first book of poems, Moving the House, was selected for VOA editions by William Stafford, who wrote the introduction. Founder of the Lane Literary Guild, she and her husband, writer Ralph Salisbury, live in Eugene. Her website is www.ingridwendt.com. Please give a warm welcome to Ingrid Wendt.
Thank you very much, Stephen and Paulette, for organizing and for inviting me to be here as the keynote reader. I know there are many people in the audience who would deserve this honor equally well, so I appreciate your being here. I'm looking forward to hearing the other readers after I'm done. And I'm going to do something a bit inventive in a moment, but I also want to thank the library, and my thanks to Stevens, the library, for hosting this event, and to all the other people who helped make it possible. Michelle and lots of other people, so thank you very much. I'm going to try something a little bit new. I did it once before in Mexico. Ralph and I had a 3-month residency, which was quite amazing. We're retired, so you know good things happen when you have more time. And we gave readings every month at the place we were staying, in English, I hasten to add. So I'm going to try the PowerPoint similar to what I did before. I'm going to show the poems because I started doing this knowing that we had Spanish speakers in the audience, and listening to a poem in English might have been a bit of a challenge, although they were fluent in English. And even I have trouble listening to poems in English without seeing them on the page. I'm a visually oriented person. So I'm a little intimidated here because we have some real photographers with us, professional photographers, and I've just sort of illustrated some of my poems with photographs that I was taking, not for the poems, but they all went together. The first poem I'm going to read was one of several that I wrote in Mexico, but it was, interestingly, about the Oregon coast. And the 2 years that Ralph and I lived over there in our little beach retreat, we were trying to decide, should we sell it or not? And I wasn't writing at that time. I was having some medical issues, but I was writing in my journal. So this came out of the journal I took with me down there. For those of you who sometimes struggle with the blank page, I'll share a little secret. I found myself doing a number of poems in forms, but I was trying to disguise them a little bit, and also playing with the forms and extending the iambic pentameter to 15 syllables and extending the sonnet length to more than 14 lines and just having fun with it. So I'll get started. And I'll try not to talk too much in between. Thank you all for coming. Our Christmas letter, Oregon Coast, 2007. I should say these are all still maybe in progress. You know, you're seeing where I am so far. Our Christmas letter, Oregon Coast, 2007, won't get sent this year or ever. How can this be? Nearly 40 years we've been on time, mining each year's calendar for news, good cheer, and now we draw a blank. Here, we're living from storm to storm, in the small retreat we've owned for 30 years and soon we'll try to sell or not. We talk. Everything we've ever known is upside down. My balance isn't good. I fall. The same wars go on. What are words in the face of all that death? And our own, and hers, the slowest train in all creation coming towards her for months. Hope? Something on the back burner, crusted over, at war with guilt when I succumb to moments of renewal, as when, after the enormous storm that took away homes, roads, took trees in its jaws and dropped them onto our own neighbor's roof, I went walking late one night on the beach, wading right through knee-high, washed-up sea foam, quivering, shimmering, millions of the tiniest possible bubbles like jellyfish spankling my boots, boots bought for me by a man so faithful a companion planets in their orbits could be jealous. My boots from arches all the way to my knees were, ah, the wonder, bandaged in stars. I'm sure you've all seen sea foam on the beach, but I took that during the day, not at night. This one is also from a journal from a time we were in Mexico before. All day the fierce wind. All day the fierce wind that began at 5 in the morning, dancing with patio chairs and table, blasting and whining and shaking windows and doors, went on. Crests of waves doubled in number, charged the beach from a bay that just 2 days before had been tranquil, still. Outside to the west, the jumble of nearby palms was a frenzy of silk stockings rubbing together. Whispers magnified 10,000 times. And then, just as I was falling that night into sleep, a new sound, a low, comforting purr, a gentle inhalation, exhalation, regular, deep. A sound I'd never heard you make in your sleep before. A soft crunch of toasted bread with a musical edge. And when, next morning, at first light you rose and the sound went on, I recognized, at last, as from the time before I was born, the steady, intimate breath of the sea. I don't know if you can see these very well with the light in here, but this is the rising sun over the Caribbean. And we were in Half Moon Bay. We're missing the first part of it, but it's called Half Moon Bay, in the town of Akumal on the Yucatan Peninsula. But while we were there, we had just arrived, we were 2 days there, and the news came of the shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. And I was truly paralyzed, unable to write for maybe a couple of weeks, to write about anything substantial. So I tried all sorts of experiments. I tried using some prompts, and they were fun, you know, but I knew I had to get at this somehow before I could really go on. So a couple of weeks after we were there, I was able to write this poem. After the shooting, we look for comfort in the great night sky, but there is none. We look for comfort in the morning birds, but they sing only to themselves, to declare which part of Eden is their own, to find each other over the steady rumble of the sea. School children's lives are nothing to them. Guns are nothing to them. Parents whose lives will never be the same, who could have been any two of us, whose children were in the wrong place at the wrong time, are nothing to them or to the waters crumbling just out of sight. Water, great giver and taker, help us to remember whatever it is that can keep us in touch with the hard truths of this world and still stay sane. Who used to believe we could make something of beauty that would not be obscene in the face of such despair, something to bind us, constant as the long, long track of the moon on a tranquil sea, or lake, or ocean, its path to us shimmering, streaming, all the way from the wet, level edge of the world right to your feet and mine, no matter where or on which shore we stand. And I thought I'd share this quotation, something that I tried to remember. I try to read this to students and teachers when I do workshops. Something by the writer John Berger. Poems, regardless of any outcome, cross the battlefields, tending the wounded, listening to the wild monologues of the triumphant or fearful. They bring a kind of peace, not by anesthesia or easy reassurance, but by recognition that the promise that what has been experienced cannot disappear as if it had never been. The promise is that language has acknowledged, has given shelter to the experience which demanded, which cried out. And then I got to thinking, okay, I've written this, but still, how do I return to joy? And can I justify returning to joy to myself, not necessarily to other people, but to myself? And then I remembered something else by Rachel Carson. I'll share this with you. And the poem I'm going to read next is Yalku Lagoon. The more clearly we can focus our attention on the wonders and realities of the universe about us, the less taste we shall have for destruction. So, keeping faith with that idea, I offer a few more. This is a freshwater lagoon. It empties into the actual sea, and then there's fresh water constantly renewing. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. So it's half seawater, half freshwater, and it's the home of thousands of fish and a great place to snorkel, although it's becoming less of a good place because the tourists are too numerous. But anyway, that's another story. Yalku Lagoon, it's a place that it gives me much joy. I consider snorkeling a kind of meditation. And I still was having trouble getting into the present where I was. And so I used a few prompts. And this one was to use a repeating sound, the next one. A repeating sound. You'll hear it. Yalku Lagoon. Fusion of robin's egg blue and chartreuse. This jungle-fringed scoop of sky, pruning each new tuneful morning into being. This jeweled profusion, this jubilation of fishes seducing the fool that I am, consumed by the need to name. Rainbow parrotfish, sergeant majors, thin slivers of needlefish, stitching sky to sea, making room for this curious human intrusion. Symphonic silence blooming, colors mushrooming. Where is the word for this joy, this daily renewal? Here in the land of the Maya, doomsday looming, my world-bruised spirit transported, transfused. You're probably remembering how the world was supposed to end on the day of the solstice, and Maya predictions. Obviously it did not happen. That's not me or anyone, but I was just taking a picture to give you an idea of what the water is like. And I'm going to skip the parrotfish and Italian cestets because there's some other ones I want to get to. And besides, I'm still working on it. But these are not my photos. So they're pretty amazing, those fish. Switching subjects entirely, I didn't write only about Mexico, but I was remembering this girl that some of you may know who loves to play the piano and is still discovering it, taking lessons now. But when she comes to visit our house, she goes right for the piano, and this is her favorite, Heart and Soul. And those of you who play or know people who play. It's this duet. Da 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 da. Ring a bell? There's this piano piece the girl loves to play. The faster the better. Loud is good too. Over and over she practices it, the way I tried in 7th grade to play Chopin's Minute Waltz in 1 minute or less, and couldn't get it down to less than 80 seconds. Since then, I've learned that Chopin's title is not the original. Frederick did not write for the clock, as is commonly assumed, but for a countess. And in the back of his mind, a small dog chasing its tail. Or maybe that's just what he said, responding instead to some other urgency. Something to keep pace with his darting mind, his heart about to be shunned by his only love. The soul he could no longer contain, given to us to be reborn each time our fingers burn. Oh, I knew nothing of pacing. Or if I did, still I played the waltz fast and furious, never the slightest hesitation within or in between measures, where deep feeling can, in hands that listen to the heart, steal out of hiding. What did it take to break me of this habit? Failed loves of my own, plunges through layers of grief that for the unlucky among us drown the soul? What is it I wish for this girl with fingers of fire, this girl who is still whole? Another poem about Akumal, and it's a sonnet. It was fun. On Valentine's Day. You gotta write sonnets on Valentine's Day. Oh, how I love your evergreen jungle. Everything blooming, or bearing, or ready to be born, sometimes all three at once, on the same delicious plant. Your coconut palms, for instance, under ever sashaying fronds, 5 or 6 clusters of fruits, and flowers in all stages of production. Down the bottom left are the coconuts, and then there's some little coconuts to the right, and then there's the flowers. 5 or 6 clusters of fruits and flowers in all stages of production year-round. How much I learn from them, and from your birds. I love their constant mating ballets. How do they keep at it all day, every day? Waiting for them to cease and desist would be like waiting for the sun to eclipse the moon. Your cocoa brown doves do it on the one bare branch and all that berry-filled tree next to my balcony, shamelessly. Oh, so much fertility. My eyes have died and gone to heaven, and that's not even to begin naming what's in your Eden under the sea. Look, Valentine, see, I'm blossoming, I'm bearing, even as I speak. Be mine. That was fun. Well, okay, Darwin Grey Dew. It's a different kind of love poem also. I first had this titled Anniversary Sonnet. I haven't missed the dodo bird, not missed the grand caiman thrush, Snake River sucker. I could do without Tecopa pupfish, Lewis curly mussels, hypo hippos. Oh, I had a great time looking up all the extinct species online, you know. And then I'm making them rhyme. Haven't pined the Bachman's warbler, Irish deer, heath hen, squawk of the Labrador duck, nor would I miss apologies to some music of Schoenberg and Paul Hindemith. But the very thought of Sunday waking without you at my side, my born-again saber-tooth, pouncing each night from the den of gentleness for years, thrusts me, shaking, into despair. And so I will not dwell upon it. What's extinction? Pure fable. I'll pass the sugar ants. It wasn't all sweetness and light, that we had to get along with other people. most of whom were really wonderful, agreeable people. There was one for whom I wrote a poem, the likes of which I'd never written before in my life and hope I never will again. Residency news, it's split couplets. She was only there a month. Everybody was so happy when she left. It isn't the same without you. It's sheer joy, not steering around your ceaseless whining, your stream of mean grievances. Now we freely rejoice. We're here. Jungle heat that rumpled your feathers bathes us. It loves us, invites us to sit tight at our desks and easels, doing the work. We go berserk if kept from any longer by your poisoned plots, your arson. No more the terrible countdown till your blessed departure. It was waiting for Santa all over again. May your luggage, you dear departed, be filled with sand fleas, hitching a ride to your living room floor, and may your ankles stay forever peppered with bites. Would that I not have to write such ungenerous thoughts ever again, could say Amen. Am I possibly of two minds in this? Ah, you wish. I'll skip the Yucatan Gecko. I'm conscious that there are other people wanting to read and have been asked to read in this first hour. So for those of you who are curious, this gecko was leaving me calling cards, first on my pillow and then on my desk. On the one rough draft titled Yucatan Gecko. And it left its calling card there. One or two more. I think I'll do this one and then skip to my last. Morning meditation. There's also a meditation in just sitting and watching the sunrise, which I did almost every morning on the rooftop. And the birds start to come. Sometimes they wake me up first. And then I'm too late. Morning meditation. Tiny as an infant's fist, a yellow-bellied banana quit is flitting around in the blooming and bearing palm beside the southeast corner of my rooftop terrace. First one I've seen in the whole 2 blessed months I've been here. Too fast for me to snap a photo. It lands on a frond, looks around, is off again, just like my mind. Meanwhile, the great-tailed grackle lords it over the jungle from whatever high peak he's found. Meanwhile, the mockingbird pours out its whole long repertoire to the deaf rising sun. 12 years after her death, I put it together, what I have known all along. This morning, remembering, I saw a little birdie go hop, hop, hop. One more song my mother taught me. Kommt ein Vogel geflogen, before things got tough between us. Now the sun is in the west, and the birds have found their nest. 12 years. We must say our prayers, they say, thank our Father for this day. 3 songs, 3 birds, my mother's lamb, and God. I'll skip the Kiskadee. And a poem, again from a journal. Dorothy in the poem is Dorothy Stafford, and Rolf and I were very blessed by the friendship of both Dorothy and Bill for many years. And we still see Dorothy occasionally when we go to Portland. She's 97 and just fantastic. So this will be my last one. Then we'll hear from some other people. With Dorothy and sisters. The last time here, we'd been together, we 4. We'd slept in their bedroom while they slept under the pines and stars on the outside deck till dawn, when he had risen, as was his custom, and wrote a poem before we even opened our eyes. Now 3 of us were here again, this time with other dear old friends, and one new one. The young photographer who had driven Dorothy from her Lake Oswego home. How cheerful all of us were. How we hugged each other, how we reveled in the view, the fresh, crisp air, talking about our children, reading new poems, all things sunny and bright. But the darkness around us was deep. And when mealtime came around, and we raised our glasses to make a toast, we hesitated. Around our group, we could hear the wilderness listen. Dorothy looked at each of us in turn, raised her own glass high. To life, she said. To life, we echoed. And so we toast since then. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Ingrid Wendt, everybody. I just want to say that it's very gracious of you to give up some time for the fact that we're running long. I'm going to try next year and figure this time thing a little better so everybody has time to read. And you know, but the first hour always takes a while because when everybody's getting settled and all that. So. Anyway, so if anybody else wants to cut their reading just a little bit short for everyone else, that'd be great. Then, you know, we would welcome that as well. Thanks again for that. We have a visiting poet from Corvalis, Jana Zvibleman. Jana's poetry and prose meander from modern coyote tales through keyholes into family angst, over to adult children's games, and underneath everything. And she's not above humor. Her publication list is too long to fit on the head of a pen. She collaborates with artists in a different genre and combines her own visual arts with her writing. Valuing render-based critique, she appreciates hearing movies of your mind in response to her work. Dedicated to promoting literary arts, she has served on boards of the Magic Barrel and the Cha Ti Manui Storytelling Festival. Is that right? Okay. Jana lives in Corvalis. Please welcome Jana Zvibleman.
I got one shoe. Thank you. This is, can you hear? This is the classic art act to follow, Ingrid. It's wonderful, and I wanted to hear all the ones that you skipped. It's like, wait, turn back the clock. And thank you to the other people who've done all the work for this. I met a man when I was getting out of the car outside the library who was holding, obviously, a poem in his hand. I could see the lining, and he said, I said, oh, you're coming in here? And he said, no, 6:30, the erotic only, 6:30, erotic only, over at Tsunami Books. And he kept repeating that, and I'm like, okay, I got it. Mine is non-erotic only, maybe, I think, unless I'm forgetting something in here. Some of you I know, and some of you have seen before at other readings, and so some of these are going to be repeats, but darn it, you know, folk singers can sing their songs again and again, so we can bear, I guess, hearing the same ones sometimes. I'm going to start with just one little excerpt from a long series called The Old Woman Next Door, and it goes through all the different old women that I've lived next door to in my life, and ends, which I'm not going to read about, but ends with me being the next old woman. So it's the old woman and the next old woman next door, and this is Wilma. Wilma was flustered, her roses fluttering, losing her roses. The hardest thing about the daughters and the granddaughters right in her kitchen, in and out of her garage, for goodness sake, raining over her very driveway, taking over in her lawn chairs, setting Wilma down. Labeling her maple dining room set, can you imagine? And of all things, her empty perfume bottles. And oh, that painting of the daisies her sister gave her. Wilma never did like daisies, all flat and bleached, putting a tag on her husband's tool whatnots she had held on to all these years. Her cushions being turned over by perfect strangers, saying goodbye, Wilma, as if they knew her, as she tried to bustle up and she dropped back down onto her rocker. Her rocker, they plunked outside, here by her grass is too long. She needs to get up on her riding more. They say, don't be silly. They said, you can keep your rocker. Wilma being looked at by youngsters, saying, come back and visit the neighborhood, saying, we'll think of you when we use this pretty little teapot of yours, saying, did you know there's a chip? Saying, we'll miss you, but we've heard that Horizons something, assistance living something, is a lovely place, a real nice place, Wilma. Saying, Wilma, as if they knew her, you'll miss your roses, huh? Saying, how much for this throw rug? Would you take less? Wilma was flustered, her roses fluttering, losing her roses, as these people knocked by them, no one seeing her yellows, dropping petals, the reds fading. The sunrise pinks will brown on the ground, a terrible season to leave them, her roses. Got to deadhead, need to get down that box of rose food. Don't tell me they sold that. Next month she'll clip her rose bushes down to knee-high. Knee-high, what happened to her shears? All these people saying, Wilma, as if they knew her, we'll bring you a vase of your roses next year. I want to stop and talk about it here, but we'll listen to you about it. Something to a different subject. This is called Backseat. Backseat. I wish you could see it up there. Once you filled almost exactly inside the lines of your princess's ball gown, blue, and her hair yellow in your new coloring book, and you've peeked over at your sister's, and hers is prettier, none of her crayons broke, and you've pretended all the trees next to the highway are getting cut off by that line at the top of your window, and your daddy has sung, oh, wheel of fortune, keeps spinning around again and around again, and you sucked and chewed the very last raisin in your little red box, and your sister has shoved your foot back to your side, and she's made a face at you, and your mother has said only to you, keep your hands to yourself, and you've picked the scab off your knee, nobody's seeing. Once your daddy has sung la-di-da-di-da-di-da some more, and you've slanted your eyes up with your thumbs, and you've asked if you're almost at Howard Johnson's yet, and can you get 2 scoops of pistachio ice cream this time, why not? And after only 91 bottles of beer on the wall, your sister has made your mother make you change songs, and you get only up to the ants go marching 11 by 11 when they tell you to stop that too. So you whisper loudly, 100 bottles of ants on the wall? So your mother says, blow your nose, and reaches back your daddy's folded up white handkerchief, and you've stuck it out your window, but held onto one corner tight, and watched it open, flap, flutter, wave and flutter, flap, a wing, a bird, a pretty dancing dress, a waterfall, ocean, you as a lady. Then your daddy says, put that thing inside, I already told you once, people might think you're waving a white flag for help. I'm curious, who's ever done a handkerchief out the window? Me. No? You should try it, it's really fun. What?
I have to tell our grandkids about that.
Yeah, but then make sure that they hold on. Makes you model grandma to sing. This is called Foxes. My son-in-law took his mother and my daughter and me on a Mother's Day rafting trip to John Day 2 years ago. And this is not exactly them, but based on that. It's called Foxes. We're all in the same raft, and the sun is shining. Then it's raining too, and we hustle tug into waterproof pants, tangle into rain jackets, settle, and see the drops falling into the river sparkling. When the sun is shining and it's raining too, someone shouts above the noise of the current. They say the devil is beating his wife. Oh, that's terrible, I shout back. I like sun and rain together. Usually means we'll see a rainbow. We don't. The devil beating his wife, someone says. I don't know where they got it, but it's a good one. I say, come on, how about at least adding the woman is breaking free? Now someone says, you know, saying the wife is escaping the abusive situation and makes her way to social services and is filing a restraining order. It just don't have the same ring. They all laugh. Someone says, the saying I've heard when it rains and shines together is the foxes are having their weddings. I say, I like it. The fox having their wedding. No, someone says foxes, like all of them, a field full of fox couples, weddings, a big fox bunch of fox wedding parties. Someone else says all kinds too, same-sex fox couples and polygamous foxes. I'm looking through binoculars, river left, river right, searching for foxes. I say it's much better than the one about beating. Actually, someone says you should not edit the classics. There's a reason for ancient sayings. So like that devil metaphor is how people could talk about domestic violence. It ruins it, I say. I mean the weather. I love the sky getting indigo and the surprise, the happiness of rain with sun. Who would the rain be, someone says, the wife crying? And the sun is the guy's flaming temper, flash crash? I say quietly, I just say the foxes are having their weddings. Someone says, like, if there's thunder, that's his bellowing at her, of course. Someone else says, and the clouds crashing into each other. Of course, that's the beating part. A big old club, probably, or his big hammy fist. I have an idea, I say. Let's each make up more new sayings. Like when it's raining and sunny, a little girl is splashing, an idea is splashing into some little girl's head, and someday it'll become a flowing poem she'll write, or a symphony. No one says anything. I say, or the sky child is spilling his juice, and the sky mother's smiling, you know, brightly, and she's teaching him how to wipe it up, and he squeezes the sponge, and that makes the rivers. Someone says, hey, that devil got bored clobbering his wife, because look, it stopped. So there's your happy ending, okay, sunshine, yay, he got thrown in jail. I'm getting out of this rain gear. So I always ask this when I read, has anyone ever heard that saying that the foxes are having their weddings? You have?
Yes.
Wow. Do you know where it comes from?
Yes, I saw it in a movie by Akira Kurosawa. It's a Japanese movie. It was seven stories. It was a movie a long time ago.
Wow.
And it showed the foxes. It was a really good movie.
And has anyone ever heard the devil beating his wife? You have?
Yes.
Do you know where that comes from? Worms and stars. The epigraph comes from a piece called On a Note of Triumph by someone named Norman Corwin, who wrote it about World War II, and it was a radio broadcast. It was just one tiny excerpt you can find on the web of this great radio broadcast. And in his 1940s voice it was, excuse me, Lord God of trajectory and blast, Lord God of test tube and blueprint, who jointed molecules of dust and shook them till their name was atom, who taught worms and stars how they could live together. And I said, if worms and stars can learn to live together, if the grand of the skies and the lowly of the dirt, if all is with all and feels each other, in each other, without legislation mandating respect, without words for reasons, if each lets each circle into its own orbit, push through its own tunnel, one sparking life in the speck on the farthest planet, one dragging air through the universe, under empires, same atoms, thriving into infinity while burning out in the flash that is untold centuries, dying unseen into the stuff of its vital moment. If joining meant coming closer than breath, if being together can reach farther than light, if all experiments and all plans are the one adventure, if color, no color, brilliant and dull vibrate as one, then why can't you just do what I want for once and turn off the TV already? I have to get up in the morning and go to work, you know. Your tossing and turning is killing me. I wish that dog out there would shut up. You get to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Kathryn Ridall. Kathryn Ridall lived and worked in California for 40 years before moving to Eugene in the summer of 2010. She is the author of 2 poetry chapbooks and the editor of 2 anthologies. Most recently, What the River Brings, Oregon River Poems. She's the editor and publisher of Fate Press and facilitates writing groups with upcoming classes at Sitka Retreat Center and Ophelia's Place in Eugene. She can be reached at her website, Ridall.com. Kathryn?
I cut stuff short because I know we're sort of pressed for time. Thanks, Stephen, for putting this together. I know how much work something like this takes, and thanks for some great reading. And thanks to the library. As my bio said, I lived in California for 40 years, and I moved here 3 years ago. So I've been thinking a lot about roots and home and rootlessness. And I've just put together a chapbook with those themes, integrating my own experience with stories of other people that I've heard. So you're going to get a sort of swatch of the chapbook. First poem is called On Moving Late in Life. At first glance, the plant seems yielding, able to sway in many seasons. Your approach is gentle, a slight tilt, rocking the pot front to back. When there's no release, you insert a trowel, wedge it 360 degrees around, rock the pot again, a bit more muscle this time. Still no give, the plant holding fast. You can feel the problem, long strands of root hair snaking out the drain in a tight knot. Hand of ice, you clamp down on the stem and yank hard, no budge. Banging the trowel against the pot's bottom, you pull harder yet. Sweat rivers over your breasts, and you're crying as you hear roots ripping. Then a jerk of surrender as the plant lurches from its pot. Stripped of refuge, thousands of milky white threads, entwined and solid, exact image of the abandoned pot, naked in the blistering air. Seeing the plant, bruised and brave, so faithful to its old form, you whisper words of comfort, ease it down a hole, patting earth into swaddling. Turn the hose to the setting called gentle rain. Now you wait to see how the plant will take to new soil. Only time will tell. This next poem is called Remembering, and this is sort of my winter experience here, but fortunately it's getting shorter every year, this experience. But it also kind of captures when you have one template inside of the world and you're in another template, because you've moved. Remembering. I remember my home in California. Orange tile roof and walls of glass open to pine trees and hills green and gold in season. Remember how my pale lover the moon slipped in, painting my body silver, and the morning sun pooled, and 2 purring cats dove into warm amber. My new house is in a grayer place. Small windows and thick walls protect from persistent rains. In dream, a small trapped bird flies against a latched window, frantic for air and wide, unfettered currents. So some of you may have seen pictures of Pablo Neruda's house in Isla Negra. He had 2 houses in Chile, and one was on the beach, and he was quite a collector. He collected shoes and bottles and navigational instruments, but his most amazing collection were of figureheads from the prows of ships, wooden figureheads. And he fixed them to his floor and to his ceiling so that when you looked at his house, there were all these kind of phantom shapes sailing through the space of his house. And one of his friends said, I love Pablo, but his house was ugly. Now, I think his house was beautiful, but I know that I would not be able to live there, and that's what this poem's about. Isla Negra, for Pablo Neruda. For decades, he lived next to the sea, collecting shells and seafood from unknowable reaches, listening to the ceaseless surf. Maiden and queen, pirate and angel sailed through his rooms. Wooden figureheads, salt-stained, ripped from the prows of ships long gone. Their hollowed eyes remembering how the sea rose in mountains and masts pitched like sticks in the wind. I can see the poet buttering his toast, pouring his whiskey neat and tossing it back. A man at ease with these wraiths and the sea's constant toll, his pen strong enough to record the cries of such a place. This next poem is called Red Bricks, and the story was told to me by my best friend, who is Dutch, and her grandfather lived in occupied in the Netherlands during World War II. This is called Red Bricks, and this is the title poem for my book that I've written. Red Bricks. Like a dream repeating, hinting at a sea change needed, his story pursues me. Near the end of the war, many countries have fallen, crushed like fields of poppies. A man is warned, tanks are coming, houses along his road will be plowed to ground. This man takes apart his home, brick by brick, hauling everyone by truck and cart to a far field, then sends his children away. After peace returns, he hauls back his bricks one by one, rebuilding his house exactly as it was, and brings his children home. How his story sticks to my ribs, feeding this wanderer who has lived in many places under many roofs. Hard to imagine such close knowing of each brick, its heft, how it leans into and supports all others, the devotion to a one and only home lived in for a lifetime. His red bricks shimmer now, beckoning me to something deep-rooted, perhaps first felt by early men in rough caverns. A love of home, its sheltering embrace, holding us in chill wind and under dark, unfathomable skies. A place we do not forsake, and that does not forsake us. Last poem I'll read is called Call and Response. And in Eugene, many of you may know, there's a wonderful artist. His name is Judith Sparks. And she's really a treasure. She is a nature mystic, and she works in many different media. And I've spent some time in her studio over the last couple months, and was really loving her work. One of her creative obsessions is the salmon. So this is called Call and Response for Judith Spark. Without much fuss, she labors in her studio on a back street. Salmon mandalas, paper money with salmon imprints, salmon prayer flags line the walls, standing in deep stacks. When young, she first heard about the great orange fish, voyagers of river and salt, how they heave and strain as they climb impassable concrete. Each year, she hears them cry out as they fall back, responds in the best way she knows, staining and painting, cutting and gluing, her hands shaping a constant prayer. May you find your way home.
Thank you, Kathryn. Okay, Erik, Muller, Erik, I just want to say that you've been so encouraging to me in my poetry journey, and I just want to thank you for that. Erik Muller, Eugene, retired as a college writing instructor and has edited Traprock books for 10 years. The 28th and final poetry title just out. Erik is a poet and essay writer. His poems occasionally appear in Hubbub, Windfall, and Cloudbank. His chapbooks are self-published. The essays examine careers of Oregon poets. Boise State University's Western Writers Series published his survey of Vern Rutsala. Okay. Harcourt Bruce Jovanovich published Opening Arguments, a writing textbook. Time well spent includes gardening, hiking, and forest trail maintenance. Please welcome Erik Muller.
Thank you all. Just in the interest of time, I've been doing some very quick editing. I've got a little pile of papers under my chair, which is actually thicker than what I'm going to read you. I have two poems, and hopefully they'll lodge. And they come from some of the experiences that Stephen mentioned. Memorial Day. In the cemetery, Masonic Cemetery, you know, if you know that neighborhood, there's a guy who plays taps at noon. I happened to be going up there, I think it was Sunday or Monday, I can't remember which. I was going to Michael Weiss's grave, an old friend of mine. He's been up there about 10 years. And just as I knelt by Michael's grave, the tap started. It was raining also. I went home and I wrote this poem. It's in the point of view of first person plural, we, which is a little risky, but I'm going to ask you to join me on this little voyage. The second poem is a meditation on a mountain, in the sense that mountains are so barren and valleys are so full. And just that interesting point. Memorial Day noon, 2013, Eugene Masonic Cemetery. If we wish, we can ride the few held notes of taps toward whatever belief might take us. Artifice of trumpet, of breath, long notes float in moist air, rain pattering double time within the beat. Of breath, we learn what we own alive, spending and spending until an end. Trumpet taking the player's breath away, up and away. An elemental tune sends us from ourselves, though we kneel by chosen stones where friends no longer breathe. We go down to earth as taps goes high, high beyond hearing, perhaps where faith might follow. Raining still, knees soaked, we stand at last and see around us sudden green. From where did it come? Dense and myriad, maple leaves shelving, deep purple oso berries clustering in crescendo, spirit moving slowly enough it can be seen. That last thought is from Théo de Chardin. The mountain gives. We're walking where the mountain gives rock, soil, the forest, and this creek running down and under. That's how the mountain peaked, a place few of us go, a sharp tooth against the sky, steep and stripped of gentleness. Yet here are woods we have come to know, formed of the mountain's refusals, this rough-hewn garden. We walk here because natives and pack horses supplying lookouts pounded a trail through chaos. Better say riches. What the mountain hands us, what we breathe, and in the valley, drink and eat. Yet we are filled by what the sparse peak keeps. Mineral sheen, high cleanliness, unencumbered being.
Thank you so much, Erik. I want to thank all of our poets who read so far. I want to hear so much more from all of you. So I'm hoping to do the Eugene Poetry Open Mic again this year. And if I do, I hope all of you will come and grace us with more of your wonderful work. So let's take a 10-minute break, and then we'll do some more. We'll come back with some performance poets.